Right, hello everyone, welcome back to CrawfordCana. Really big time in Lorcana at the minute as we have just had DLC Milwaukee and there was some fantastic games on the stream. It's been a really late night trying to keep up with everything, but don't you worry, I've stayed up. I've got all the deck lists together so you can peruse and look at your leisure to see the top 8 in the world at the minute. These are the very best players around. And the best thing is there's such a variety in the top 8. We've got very used to just seeing a Blurple only meta, but this tournament proves completely different, as you are going to see in the upcoming deck list. Let's dive straight in and take a look at place number 8. Now, for this player, I'll be honest, I wanted to recap anyway, because for them coming 8th is absolutely unreal. As soon as I saw they were into the second day, I was like, I need to cover this deck list, because Aiden, who came 8th with Amber Steel Aggro, is 10 years old. Yep, 10 years old. To this date, he is the youngest person to ever top 8 a DLC in Lorcana, and it is a phenomenal achievement for anyone, but for somebody of his age, it's so much bigger. So a massive, massive shout out to Aiden for such a phenomenal performance. But on top of that, we need to go one level higher, because in his top 16 match, he took out none other than the world champion DKP running Blurple. DKP had a phenomenal tournament. He was right at the top of the standings for Swiss. He was basically unbeaten, even taking out the likes of Ed Chu. And this kid, Aiden, has walked straight in and beat the world champ. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Don't get me wrong, he's going to have a little bit of an advantage in the Blurple matchup, but we need to remember this kid is 10 years old, and that is some achievement. So, Aiden, if you are watching this video or your parents see it, a massive well done to you. Great job, and I look forward to what's coming next in your Lorcana career. Looking at the deck list, we have what looks like kind of the basics, but with a little bit of extra spice added in, which I'm glad to see. We have 4 copies of Aurora, 4 copies of Daisy, 4 copies of Rhino, and 4 copies of Mulan in our base 1-drop slot. Obviously, in Amber Steel, the very thing we're going for at the start is getting the Aurora down and then cheating out the Tiana early. Aurora has the effect that when it quests, you can play a character that's a princess for 1 cost less. So it's a nice way to get Tiana out on turn 2. And a Tiana turn 2 can cause a lot of problems for other decks. In our 2 cost slots, we have 2 copies of Lilo Escape Artist, which is nice to see again. We saw a lot more Lilo when Ruby Sapphire was in the meta on the previous set, just because you can keep playing it from your discard pile. But the good thing about this is you are filling out your board even more. So it also links in well to Strength for Rage and Fire. We can get that Troubadour out, get Lilo on at the start of turn, after bringing it back from the discard. You've got another body, so when you do sing your Strength, you're dealing even more damage. So a really great shout out here. 3 copies of Penny to be able to remove damage and give some characters resist, protect your characters for a little bit longer. 4 copies of Trube as your singer, 4 copies of Doc, and 4 copies of Nala. Let me just say, Nala is an absolutely terrifying card. 2 cost steel character, and it quests for 3 when it has no damage on it, but it also has resist 1. Trust me, Amber Steel can really cook so quickly and just push way quickly to 20, a little bit too fast for anyone to deal with, especially with Nala on the field. We've got 4 copies of Lady Family Dog, which is a really nice card, being able to play a 2 cost character or less for free when you play her. 4 copies of Tiana, obviously to just hinder every deck on the planet. I've been playing Blurple recently, and honestly, I can't tell you how annoying it is trying to deal with Tiana when you don't have a copy of Into the Unknown. They get a bodyguard down after it, and then you just can't deal with anything on their board. By the time it hits turn 7, they've won, and you've not even got a law yet. It's absolutely mental. 1 copy of Lilo Best Explorer Ever, which I've not actually seen in any Amber Steel decks for a long time, if ever. Now, Lilo's a really cool card because when you play her, you get to give all your other characters Challenger 2, but additionally, when she quests, chosen alien characters get Challenger +2 as well. This is just a nice way to be able to cheat out some bigger characters on your board. Sometimes with Amber Steel, you just don't hit the nuts and it's going to be a longer game. And most of the time when it's a longer game, you're going to lose because your characters are tiny. You can't do much clearing apart from strength or cannons. However, with Lilo, you get to give those characters an extra bit. So with the Challenger, they get Challenger +2. They can then take out some other characters, clear the board down and protect yourself while you're sitting on that 18-19 bubble waiting to get over the line. Really, really useful card. We have 3 copies of Pete, which is great to stop Under the Sea. Green is a massive problem for Amber Steel at the minute, especially green-blue. Under the Sea just wipes every single character they have. The only thing that will get around it in this deck is Pluto. But when you challenge into Pluto, it goes straight back down to a 1 strength character and everything wipes. So it's really hard for them to survive if they don't win in the first 4 turns. We've got 3 copies of Fire the Cannons just to do a little bit of extra chip damage. I know a lot of people are playing 4 cannons, but I personally find it a little bit bricky, so I think 3 is a nice number here. And then 4 copies of Strength of a Raging Fire. Seriously, what a deck, what a player. Well done, kid. Now, coming in at number 7, we have Chris Oyola. And as you can imagine, on this channel, I'm very excited about the list. It's a purple steel deck, and as you know, I'm a big purple steel player. I've had some really great results with it, so it's really cool seeing such a different style of deck. Now, I'm going to attribute this to 2 main key cards that he's added in, Finders Keepers and Pluto. I have never seen these 2 cards in competitive play for Purple Steel, but this man has went and took 7th place in a DLC using these cards, so maybe they've got a bit of legs to them. It's a nice change to the standard deck that we're seeing. Obviously, Tiago, Alphos, they've really piloted a certain style and people are following along in that direction. Even I've done it. The deck works, so, don't fix what isn't broken. But I really like that Chris has had the smarts to go and make his own version of the deck and perform so well with it. So going through, he has 3 copies of Rafiki, 4 copies of Hook, 3 copies of Happy in the 1-cost slot. I'm really happy to see Rafiki in there. I'm really big on playing Rafiki. It just controls the board a lot easier. Obviously, most people are playing Palace Guard, but the issue I have with that is it's only a 1-statted character. Yes, it sticks on the board for a while, but you want to be able to control the board in the early game with Purple Steel. Yeah, we're going for the 1-2-3, play a 4-cost character, Sing Strength, but sometimes we go against the quicker decks, and with a lot of dogs around in the meta at the minute, it's really essential to be able to clear that stat line. Rafiki is another version of Hook, just a little bit worse, but it also works in with Mim Tiny Adversary. Give it the +1, you're able to take out the Daisy straight away. Great addition to the deck. Happy's quite nice to see as it's another little evasive body. Obviously, that goes in well with the Dumbo, but it's another threat to Blurple's evasive board state. So for a 1-cost character, really good to have in there. We'll run 3 copies of Mim Tiny Adversary, which I think is the most I've ever seen in a Purple Steel deck. Most people tend to be around 1 or 2 copies. Tiago was interviewed recently and he said he absolutely hates the card, but he feels like it's kind of a necessity. And I almost agree with him. Mim on a turn 2 just kind of sucks if you're not trying to get rid of a Daisy, and overall, I don't really find many times in the game where I'm like, I really hope I draw a Mim. However, when she's on the board and sits there for a while, it can be useful for clearing out the opponent's board, hence why she needs to stay in the deck. Got 4 copies of Calhoun, and then only 3 copies of Doc, which is quite interesting. I'm a big believer on 4 docs, mainly because I have this weird disease where I never seem to draw them in matches. It's a little bit odd, but maybe I'm just really bad at shuffling. Now, this person's went down to 3, and I think that's more of a consistency thing. Lots of players complain about bricking with doc. You see too many of them at the same time. To be fair, at the CCQ in Wales, I had the same issue. I had my first match against Green-Blue, and I opened with 3 docs in my hand, and that was a little bit debilitating, to say the least. So going down on the 1 to go to 3 copies of doc could just make it a little bit more consistent so they're not bulking your hand as much. To be fair, though, with the Finders Keepers, do you even need as many docs? It's a worthwhile play to consider. We have 3 copies of Jafar Royal Vizier. Does the exact same thing that Smee does in the deck, just that evasive body on your turn, 3-2 stat line. 4 copies of Giant Cobra, really nice once you get to 16 more to just hit into your Cobras. Most of the time, I send my Cobras back at the beginning. I might occasionally keep it to threaten a Tiana, but the issue is, because it's a Vanish character, it gets popped straight away. However, sometimes it is better to force the resources out your opponent's hand. 4 copies of Genie as standard, 4 copies of Dumbo, 4 copies of Genie Wish Fulfilled, and only 1 copy of Yzma. Yzma, I'm a little bit iffy on. I feel like it's one of those things where it's nice to have in the deck, but I also just feel like it's a little bit slow. I really do prefer Dolores and Treasure Guardian just because you're getting that draw straight away. A lot of the time, Yzma goes down and then you get no benefit. However, as we've seen in this tournament, if you can get it to stick, it provides tremendous value. Sometimes the players are opting to just play down a dock with no effect, get down a Yzma, and then utilize that effect. So, yeah, really cool card, but I'm not sure I like it too much. So maybe go down to 1 could be a good play. The 2 copies of Pluto I really like, to be honest. Pluto is big body, 4 cost. However, you're protecting your other cards. With Purple Steel, it's really essential that you build your board as wide as possible. And Pluto is allowing you to do so because they can't challenge into your characters, which in hindsight, I don't know why we've not been doing more of. Don't get me wrong, it stops you from playing a Genie or maybe a Dumbo, which is what you really want to be hitting on that turn 4. However, if you've got that wide board and you're in a stalemate, playing down the Pluto can allow you to quest out, so it could be really strong, especially in the mirror match. We've got 4 copies of Bell Accomplished Mystic, which is a very high count for the deck. But when I played at CCS, the guy that I played in the top 16, he had 4 bells. Because it was open deck list, I was terrified the whole time because I knew he could get so much value off it. So I was very hindrant to quest. I didn't really want to exert my characters and risk triggering the bell. So really cool strategy here up in the bell count, but sometimes it can feel like you don't always need them. 4 copies of Elsa as standard, and then also a copy of Jasmine, Fearless Princess. We saw Tiago pilot this originally, which is a really nice card. During your turn, the character gets evasive, and you can also choose and discard a card, and the character gets challenger free. So a nice beefy stat line that can get rid of your opponent's bigger characters. Nice cool little addition there. 2 copies of Fire the Cannons. I hate Fire the Cannons, but it does work sometimes in the deck. 3 copies of Finders Keepers. I like it, don't get me wrong. And then 4 copies of Strength, as usual. Great job, Chris. Really cool deck. Coming in at 6th place, we have Dylan Brown with the dogs. Now, you're going to see quite a few dogs in this top cut list. It's been very popular, and the conversion rate has actually been really strong. So, if anything, it is shown that dogs is quite strong in this meta. I really think for the next set as well, it's going to be a terrifying deck. So, yeah, good to see the conversion rate here. Now, Dylan's deck is a little bit different to the other ones in the top cut because he seems to be going for a more quick style of play. But I do really like it because he's got the Emerald Chromicons in there. Chromicon is my favourite green card because it just puts so much pressure on your opponent making the right challenge. It puts them in a really weird headspace where they're scared to attack into you because they don't want to lose their characters on board. They have to think a lot more. Sometimes you can just stress your opponent out to victory. Really nice addition in the deck. We have 4 copies of Aurora, which is obviously in there to support your Tiana. Get Tiana out for 1 cost less. Really nice card, same as the Amber Steel style. 4 copies of Daisy, 4 copies of Lady Decisive Dog, which is a nice little substitute for Lady Miss Park Avenue. Can shift that on for shift 3. Lady Miss Park Avenue is a really cool card. Being able to get that out early is fantastic. You bring cards back into your hand from your discard. So when you are discarding your cards with cards like Bobby Zimmerowski, you can put them all into your discard pile and then bring them back in the later game. Great if you want to bring back a Daisy for aggro, or maybe even a Go-Go to Margot to put your opponent under pressure by getting that quick burst of lore. One of the big things about this deck is you're constantly having to panic about getting damage on your characters, because if it sits there for too long and you're hit by a Go-Go, you can be giving your opponent a lot of lore. And with decks which are quicker like this, it's not going to take a lot for them to be able to get over the line. Something you need to be really, really careful of. 4 copies of Bobby Zimmerowski for the discard feature. 4 copies of Lady Elegant Spaniel. Gets +1 if you have a character named Tramp in play. 4 copies of Merryweather, give you character extra stats, really cool card. Lilo Escape Artist as a 4, Go-Go as a 4, Tramp Enterprising Dog as a 4. I do really like Tramp. If you have a character named Lady in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. And then when you play this character, chosen character yours gets +1 strength this turn for each other character you have in play. I got absolutely slapped silly by that card because I didn't realise what I'd done. I'd exerted one of my characters and he was able to take out my card with a very small statted character. And so I wasn't too happy in that game. But yeah, cool card. 4 copies of Ursula Deceiver. I say it in all my videos, but please pay attention to it. This card rips songs out your hands. If you're playing against green, don't sit with songs. 4 copies of Tiana, 4 copies of Miss Park Avenue, 4 copies of Tramp Street Smart Dog. We saw this played quite a lot at the DLC. It's really good because it comes out so much easier. The effect of this card is for each character you have in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. That combines really well with Pluto, which isn't in this deck, but being able to get a 7-cost character out so easily is really useful. It means you don't need to ink as much with this deck and waste some of your resources. When you play this character, you can then draw a card for each other character you have in play and discard that many cards. So like coming in at 5th place, we have Diego Saz with dogs once again. I told you, there's going to be a few of them in this top cut list. We have 4 copies of Daisy, 4 copies of Lady, 4 copies of Bobby, and then 3 copies of Cursed Merfolk. Cursed Merfolk is such a pain in the butt because when you challenge into it, you have to discard a card. Don't get me wrong, I can't talk too much smack about it because I used it in my Emerald Amethyst list for the last set. But yeah, it's a massive nightmare when you get a few of them on the board. If they don't have the bell, if they're playing purple, to be able to ping the damage across, or maybe a strength even, or an Into the Unknown, you're forcing them to discard. And if you can limit resources in hands, it's really good for you, especially playing an aggro style deck. 2 copies of Lady Elegant Spaniel, 2 copies of Merryweather, so slightly less count than the previous deck, 4 copies of Lilo, 4 copies of Go-Go, 4 Tramp, 4 Ursula, and then only 2 copies of Lady Family Dog. Now, this is nice, same as the Amber Steel list, because you can cheat out your 2 cost or less characters nice and easy. Play down the 3-cost card, get maybe a Daisy, or I don't know, a Curse Merfolk out. It's a nice bit of aggro, so really good there. You can also utilise it with the Bobby to get a little bit of draw and discard with it, so really nice play. Like it in the deck. 4 copies of Clarabelle, Contented Wallflower. Not used to seeing this without the big shift Clarabelle. However, it makes sense, because if the opponent has more cards in their hand than you do, you get to draw a card. With Purple, Steel and Blurple being all over the meta, which are heavy draw decks, this is great, because you're going to be playing on a low size hand. You play this out, get the additional card, and you're keeping your draw going. Also, it does make them think as well, do they have the big Clarabelle? You're going to get your opponent starting to panic and start to ram their hand short for no reason whatsoever. So, nice bit of mind games there. We have 2 copies of Prince Philip, 3 cost, 3/2 stat line, quest for 2 reward. Ward's really good for the deck because it just can't be popped. If you need that final bit of lore to get over the line, really essential. 4 copies of Miss Park Avenue, 4 copies of Tramp Street Smart Dog. Got Heffalumps and Woozles in here. Nice little card here. So, chosen opposed character can't quest during the next turn, and you draw a card. 1, can target a card, pop a vanish card. 2, stopping another aggro card from questions. Really, really useful. We like that. Then 2 copies of Under the Sea and 3 copies of Chromicon. Well, Diego is glutton for punishment. He wants to ruin his opponent's day, apparently. But yeah, really strong card, so I'm happy to see it as a 3 of. I think 4 might be pushing it. You might be bricking a little bit too much with it. But if you can get 3 Chromicons out on the board, you are going to ruin your opponent's day. Great job, Diego. Well done. In 4th place, once again, close to my heart, we have another Purple Steel player. We have Jonathan Williams. Now, top 4 at DLC is a fantastic performance, so a big, massive well done to him. This deck seems a little bit more reminiscent of the standard Purple Steel that we see, kind of similar to my list, to be honest. We've got the additions of Smee in there, though, the evasive character. Similar to the Jafar we saw in the other deck at the start, it's just the evasive body on your turn for a 3/2 stat line. So they've went for 2 copies of Diablo, 2 copies of Palace Guard, 4 copies of Hook, and then 2 copies of Happy for their 1-cost slots. Obviously, Happy being evasive, we're very happy with. Palace Guard, the benefit of it is it just sticks around forever. You can also give it the boost with Jafar to put it up. It's just going to stick there, get you a nice bit of additional lore. So, really good card. Got 2 copies of Diablo in there. I'm a little bit iffy with Diablo. Yes, I play it, but I just don't like it. It's great because your opponent doesn't want to give you that extra resource, so it can stick around for a while, get you that extra question. But for my style of play, I just prefer a more controlling style, so I want to be able to use cards like Rafiki to take out other cards. But sometimes we can run short, so it is useful to have that extra draw option. Worst case scenario, you can leave it non-exerted, wait for your opponent to turn one of their characters sideways, run it in, pop your own card, and then you've at least got a little bit of draw to maybe go into a dock or a Yzma. We have 2 copies of Madam Mim, Tiny Anniversary. 2 I'm quite happy with. I think that makes sense for the account. I think 3 is a little bit too high. I just, like I say, I'm not the biggest fan of the card. 3 copies of Calhoun. A little bit risky doing 3 Calhouns, but, you know, once again, not as bricky. For me, Calhoun is my favourite turn 2 play, which is why I personally play 4 of it. I really like having to threaten my opponents that they can't exert or I'm going to get lore. But you drop in the uninkable accounts, which is a nice benefit of it. 4 copies of Doc, so unlike the other players that are running the standard 4. 3 copies of Smee, Steadfast Mate. 4 Cobra, 4 Rose. Obviously, this is your additional little bits of lore. We get ourselves 16, and these cards are going to be what gets us over the line. I think it's always best to send them back at the beginning of the game. Maybe not the White Rose, because you get the lore and it's a singer for strength. I don't like having Cobra too early on because I think it just gets popped. 4 copies of Genie as standard. 2 copies of Jafar, Spiraling Ruler. Really like this card. Quest for 2, but you also give your character Challenger 2 when it's played down. Got 4 copies of Dumbo, 4 copies of Genie, 4 copies of Yzma, so nice additional draw engine there. Then 2 copies of Belle, which most people are playing around with this number. 4 copies of Elsa, 2 copies of Cannons, and 4 copies of Strength for Rage and Fire. So quite similar to what we see a lot, but I think the big benefit to this list is it's just very consistent. The cards all have a certain thing that they're doing. It all works together. The numbers are great, and it's obviously a very well-performed deck. So massive well done to Jonathan Williams. In 3rd place, we have someone who had a mountainous performance. You might say it was forbidden to talk about how good it was. Well, it's Daniel Arnold from TFM, The Forbidden Mountain. Excuse the terrible puns. He was playing dogs, and he had a nice little different version, which was quite different to what we've seen in the other decks in the Top Cut. He's running 4 copies of Daisy, 4 copies of Lady, and 4 copies of Pluto, which I really like to see. Pluto, when you exert it, you get to pay 1 less for another character. Pluto has been so effective at getting big tramp out. Obviously, -1 for every character you have on the board, but then additionally exerting Pluto, another -1. You're getting your big characters out very quickly, which is great for this deck. It really helps you to go fast and put a threatening board presence on there, and also to filter through your deck. 4 copies of Bobby Zimmerowski, 2 copies of Merfolk. Like to see, I personally prefer a little bit higher on the Merfolk, but that's just because I really like the card. 4 copies of Lady, 2 Merryweather, 2 Lilo, 4 Go-Go, 4 Tramp, 4 Ursula, 4 copies of Lady, which I do like to see. We've got a lot of lower cost characters in the deck, so it makes sense to be able to utilise her to get your other cards out quicker. We have 2 copies of Louis, which is a really strong addition. You can force a character to be able to challenge into you by giving it Reckless. Obviously, cards like Dumbo or evasive cards when Dumbo's on the field can get around this, so you need to be careful what you select, but really nice to be able to control the board. We've got 4 copies of Miss Park Avenue, 4 copies of Tramp's Street Smart Dog, 3 copies of Heffalumps and Woozles, and then 3 copies of Under the Sea. I do personally prefer 3 copies of Under the Sea, just to guarantee that you see it. Once again, it can be a little bit bricky having more of it, but that's the whole point of Bobby Zemaruski or the Tramp card. You can get into your discard if it is going to be too much of a brick. Having more than there just means we can filter a little bit more, make sure we can get it at the right times, and also means you can be a bit more flamboyant with it. If your opponent only has a few cards that will be affected by, you can still play it down, clear their board, and put you in an advantageous position. Yeah, amazing performance, Daniel. Love to see it. Keep atop of that mountain. I need to stop. In second place, and I can't believe I'm saying this, we have our only Blurple list in the top 8. The most powerful deck in the meta, which has been absolutely dominating, was only able to get one single person into the top 8. Don't get me wrong, there was loads and loads of players in Milwaukee that were playing this deck. In fact, it was the most represented deck by quite far, beating even Purple Steel, which is a very, very high-performing deck. But Carlos was the only person able to take this into the top 8 and getting second place with it was absolutely fantastic. Literally, I've just been watching the final against the number 1 player. I'll go through that soon. Don't want to spoil that if you've not seen it. But yeah, Carlos Franco, what a player. Carlos hasn't played in as many DLCs as the person that won it, but you know, he looked so cool, so content. He knew exactly what he was doing. He played a masterful performance in this final, and he had such a great run. So massive shout out to Carlos. Absolutely amazing performance. The list is very similar to what won DLC Bologna, so it's good to see that it's performing well in both tournaments. There's a couple of changes in numbers of cards, but overall pretty similar. I can say since I've been playing that deck, since I literally stole the deck from Bologna, it does function very well. But yeah, it definitely takes a strong pilot, and that's definitely what Carlos is. So yeah, looking forward to going through this. We have 2 copies of Rafiki and 4 copies of Basil. This is something that I've been looking at doing myself. The original list that I was playing had 3 copies of Rafiki, 3 copies of Basil, just for that little even out strategy. However, I think that Basil just is a far better card than Rafiki in this list. Being able to give support, especially when your Elsa coming down, is really, really useful. The only time I kind of prefer Rafiki if I'm going against a hyper aggro matchup, just so I can put more pressure down and get damage in straight away. With Rafiki, I can go Rafiki, Tipo, and then you're able to take out a Daisy, so that's really useful. If you've got the Basil, you can't quite do that. But especially in the mirror match or against any other purple deck, Basil far outshines it. And because we have such a high representation for purple, it makes sense to be playing that 4 and 2. 4 copies of Tipo as our ramp, 4 copies of Dumbo, 4 copies of Genie, and then 3 copies of Iago. DKP in his list has actually dropped Iago, which was quite interesting. I think the big negative of Iago is, like I've said before, it just pops really easily. However, on the other side, if your opponent doesn't have the resources to deal with it, then they can't do anything into it. It's a really big character. Unless you have that action in your hand, it's a nightmare. Additionally as well, it's a great way to synergize with Dumbo, but then if you can get Iago out on your turn 3, follow it up with the Elsa, you're doing a great play there. So good to see it in the deck. 3 copies of Madam Mim Elephant. A lot of people are at 4 copies at the minute. It's great against the Purple Steel matchup. Interestingly, Carlos was inking this quite consistently against the match that he played in the finals. I personally think this card is very strong in that matchup. Once again, try not to spoil the finals if you've not seen it yet. But yeah, kept inking it. So obviously for him, valued that it wasn't as important. For me, I think Mim Elephant's a really great shout in most matchups, bar Blurple mirror matches. Don't get me wrong, it's great to be able to bounce the Hades back, but I don't really like it in everything else because the cards aren't going to exert anyway because we're in a very stalemate-based meta. So it doesn't really get any value. They can eventually pop it, and it just kind of feels like a wasted play sometimes. 4 copies of Belle Accomplished Mystic as standard, 4 copies of Elsa, and then 1 copy of Ursula Voice Stealer. I absolutely love this card because it combos so well with Into the Unknown. Play down Ursula, you can exert a card, so it does the same job as Elsa. It's like Elsa number 5, but you can also play a song that's the equivalent to the level of the card that you've exerted. So say, for example, we have 3-cost Lady and Amber. They've got that on the field. I play down Ursula, it then exerts that card. I can then play Into the Unknown for free because it matches the cost of that card. So if you want to get rid of something which is really challenging, like a Tiana or a Pluto, for example, you know, great way to be able to do that. Really like the card. 2 copies of TikTok. I know that quite a few people are a bit unsure on TikTok at the minute. I was running him, but cutting him, I found that he just ended up in my ink quite a lot. He sticks on the board quite well, which is nice, but because there's an increase in green decks, I'm worried about the Go-Go Tamagos. Obviously, it's hard to deal with the damage on your TikToks, which just kind of sits there. And I feel like he's either going to get Hades, which he does most of the time, so it's the obvious choice, or he gets loads of damage on him from challenging. You can't get rid of him yourself, and then Go-Go Tamago ruins your game. Got 4 copies of Hades, and then 1 copy of Elsa Spirit of Winter. Played in the store champs yesterday, and I tried dropping Elsa Spirit of Winter just to cut down the uninkables, and honestly, really missed the card. It's great being able to freeze 2 cards, but also having the shift line, being able to quest for free, really, really useful. 2 copies of Monstro, which we're seeing in most Blurple lists at the minute, may need to go against green-blue, really essential to take that out, but also great against the Churn Dogs list. 3 copies of Hypnotic Strength, boost your characters up, take out any vanished characters, and get additional draw. And then 2 copies of Magical Maneuvers. Really love seeing this card. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You get to pop a card back into your hand and exert one of your opponent's characters. So 1, you can target a vanished character, sort that out with it. You can bring a Hades or a Genie or an Elsa or whatever it is into your hand, which is great for you. And also you've got that additional Elsa effect of exerting a character. So if it's something that you need to get rid of, you can challenge into it straight away. 4 copies of Sail the Azeroth Sea, 2 copies of Finders Keepers. I know it's probably the correct count, but I want more Finders Keepers. I like it so much. It's such a nice draw card. 1 copy of One Jump Head. The maths on it just works. The additional bit of ramp is really useful. Saved me quite a lot of times having that extra body of ramp. 4 copies of Into the Unknown, and then 2 copies of Second Star to the Right. So the big difference there, we've been seeing some people going to dig a little deeper. I do find that Second Star, if your opponent is controlling your board well, it's really hard to be able to sing it. In the set champs I played in yesterday, I had an absolute nightmare because my opponent kept clearing my board, and I drew Second Star, into Second Star, into Hades, and I just couldn't get anything out because he kept popping my characters. I'd get the Hades down, he'd play his Hades back on mine, I could never sing it, and it ended up costing me the game. So it can be very bricky if you're not able to get it off. If you are playing against Blurple, make sure to control how many cards they've got on the board so they don't have that singer stat line. It will ruin their game. But yeah, massive well done to Carlos Franco, 2nd place at DLC, huge achievement. But on to the next deck. Now, this deck I've been so excited to cover, and not just because it is Magic the Gathering Hall of Famer Frank Karsten, but because he has made such a spicy list. This is the weirdest purple steel I have ever seen. It's so wacky, but oh my word, it performed amazingly. Frank Karsten, you are a genius, my friend. Frank is a fantastic player, and he just has so much knowledge. He writes a lot of articles for Ravensburger. They're all online, should check them out. But he just has so much in-depth knowledge of the game and also such a complex understanding of maths. He's able to work out plays that other people aren't able to understand. He calculates everything in his head, and he's always 3, 4, 5 turns ahead, which just puts him a league above everything else. This also means that Frank is our very first person to win 2 DLCs, which is a scary achievement. But it also means that Frank has got his invite into Worlds, which I'm so excited to see when he attends there. I'm sure he's going to be attending other DLCs because he's a strong player and he likes attending them. But yeah, what a fantastic performance. The finals that he played against Blurple was such an absolute thriller, and the cool combos that he's put in this deck really helped lead him to victory. One of them that I'm most excited about, Timothy Mouse. Yep, you heard it here. That is in purple steel now. I never thought I'd be saying it, but you know what? It worked. It's Blurple is a really, really tricky matchup for Purple Steel, and being able to take it in a best of 5, huge, huge achievement. Very calm, very composed, fought out every single line meticulously, and very, very well deserving of the win. Great job to Frank Karsten. So going through the deck, we have 3 copies of Diablo, 1 copy of Palace Guard, 4 copies of Captain Hook, and then 2 copies of Happy. Obviously, Palace Garden there as a 1 cost just to be able to get the additional laws. It sticks on the field for a little bit longer. Also good to have a higher amount of 1 cost because you can spam your board out a little bit more and it makes strength a little bit more valuable. Diablo being additional draw, Hook being control, and Happy being a nice evasive target. We have 1 copy of Madam Mim Tiny Adversary, giving the challenger +1 to your characters. I like it as a 1 count. I think that's the right call, to be honest. 2 copies of Raja and 1 copy of Timothy Q Mouse. I can't even. So if you've not seen Timothy Q Mouse before, well, you have a character with evasive in play, the character gets +1. So nice 2 quest just to aggro you through a little bit more. However, it's also a 1/4 stat line, which means it just sticks around for a while. So really great card to be able to keep you going through the game. Got 3 copies of Calhoun. I'm not going to bother questioning Frank because the man's a genius, but you know, I do like 4 Calhoun. Go to 4 Cal. Come on. And then 3 copies of Doc. Obviously, he's had the same value as other players there. He's realised that Doc can brick a lot, so drop down on that count. We have 3 copies of Mr. Smee, same as the Jafar card from earlier. 4 copies of Cobra for your little lore burst later in the game. 2 copies of White Rose, and 2 copies of Evasive Tinkerbell. What? To be fair, this card was doing really, really well in the deck. Obviously, 1 free stat line and evasive, questing for 2. Nice bit of aggro, but it's also another little bit of a check for the evasive characters on board. You can get a bit of extra strength onto Tinkerbell, and it's an ally, which is important for later on in the video. You can really deal with some other cards. For example, if Genie's on board, you can use your 3-cost Genie and Tinkerbell to take it out. Really nice. Got 4 copies of Genie Satisfied Dragon, 1 single copy of Jafar, the one that gives Challenger, 4 copies of Dumbo, 4 copies of Genie, 3 copies of Yzma, which I really do think is the right count, 2 copies of Belle, 4 copies of Elsa, and then Scar, finally king. Now, if you're thinking, am I suddenly talking about a blue steel deck? I wouldn't be surprised, because that's where you will see it. However, Frank has piloted a single copy of this in his deck. Now, I had a look at it, and there's over 20 ally characters in the deck, which really makes sense. Scar has the ability that all your ally characters get +1, so they're able to challenge more and they become a lot more useful. But on top of this, at the end of your turn, if Scar is exerted, you can draw cards equal to the strength of a chosen ally character yours, and if you do, choose and discard 2 cards and banish that character. So it's another huge draw engine that we can add in. So even though we're 1 down on Yzma, 1 down on Doc, we can draw mass amounts with this Scar. Really, really cool bit of tech. But on top of that, it is a 5-statted body, so it can do a lot of damage. We also have 1 copy of Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, which of course is an ally as well. But Tinkerbell can shift on to your purple Tink and then deal 1 damage to every single character on the board. On top of this, when she challenges into a character, you can deal another 2 damage to another opposing character, which is really, really nice play. We like that. We have 2 copies, 1 copy of Hypnotic Strength. Sorry, my iPad crashed there. A little bit awkward while I'm filming, isn't it? 1 copy of Hypnotic Strength, get to draw a card, give a chosen character challenger. That links in really nicely to the smaller Tinkerbell to be able to get rid of the Genies. And then additionally 4 copies of Strength of Rage and Fire. Beyond excited for this list, and I'll be honest, I'm going to have an attempt at playing it tonight. So in my next video, I am going to give you a full-on guide on how to play this, and I'm going to give you match play footage to show you exactly how it works. I think it's going to be something that's well worth sticking around for. We are coming to the end of set 9, but it's going to be really exciting to be able to get an in-depth analysis of this deck and improve your gameplay when it comes to Purple Steel. So make sure to check that out when it is uploaded later on in this week. But thank you so much to everyone who stuck around for the video. I hope you enjoyed the DLC. Let me know in the comments directly below, what was your favourite match, or who had the best deck list for all of DLC? A start a discussion. It'd be really great to have that chat going. But as always, it's been lovely hanging about with you guys. Can't wait to see you in the next video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Bye.